When someone is in resonance with one of my pieces, there is a remembering of themselves somewhere in that too. That's the only reason why you connect. There's a resonance, and you think that what you're looking at is so beautiful, but actually you see something of yourself in that piece too. I'm Elizabeth Butler. My medium is oil and metal leaf. My work is always changing and evolving, which is great because it's not static. I cover a variety of subjects. I always usually generalize and say anything beautiful. That's what I like to make. So I have a lot of florals that I do using sometimes gold and silver leaf backgrounds, other times traditional oil on wood panel. I like working on panel. And large, if possible, large floral scapes almost. The whole point of the composition is just to experience an interaction with flowers that I've arranged. I'm also working in landscape too. In landscape especially, I'm really interested in the sky with a lot of the painting aspects of it, the transparency, and really playing with some of the opacity and transparency of oil paint on panel, and especially the expansive stormy skies that we get out here in the Southwest. And then I love to hike, and I spend a lot of time outdoors, and I love moving through that Arizona environment. So I've been exploring landscape, especially with gold and silver and metal leaf. Some of that with painting, kind of in a mixed media way, and some of it in full metal leaf collage. And when I say metal leaf, I'm talking about gold leaf, silver leaf, different carats of gold leaf, like 12 or 16 karat or 18 karat gold, as well as dyed silver leaf, and breaking and tearing that up to really create the landscape. Play. In some ways, play and experimentation. I do a lot of experimentation, and I really try to be responsive to what excites me. And that usually happens just by seeing something lying there. So I had a packet of gold leaf that my aunt had given me, and she was a painter, and so she left it to me years ago, and I had it sitting around for quite a while, and just saw it lying there, and I had an old painting that I was going to paint over. Instead of painting over it, I put leaf over it, and then I painted on that, and it was like, this is fun. I like this. So it just kind of started there, and then over the years, I've really dove in and investigated the material and the technique in a really exhaustive way. I've noticed that's one of the ways that I work. You know, I started with florals and leaf, and I like to explore that subject like to the fullest depth possible until I feel like I've really mastered it. So I really did that with florals and leaf and explored that material and how I could work with paint for quite a while before I moved into doing that with landscape. And then the more I started working with landscape and gold leaf and silver leaf, I started exploring different kinds of leaf and was introduced to some of the dyed silver leaf that I'm using now. But it really just began as like this is fun. I love it for its interactive ability because the leaf is very reflective, and so it changes with the light, the kind of light, the amount of light, and where you stand. So you actually have to move around to really fully experience the piece since it changes in that way, especially if I use oil paint on top of it. The way oil paint catches light is different than the way metal leaf reflects light. So I've really enjoyed that exploration because it's an invitation to experience the environment, and it's a little more for me, connected. Being in flow, like makes me emotional to think about. I feel so lucky that I get to experience that. It's like the most beautiful experience of flow.
And when you're really in it, nothing else exists. Like time goes away and it feels like love. I'm just a channel and I get to experience like the full flow of beauty and creativity and divinity like just coming through. And then I get to be there for a while and then it's over. And I'm very, very grateful. And it's not always that connected, but when it is, it's just magic and it's really, really good. And it's outside of like the cognitive aspect when you work on something just through a place of play and curiosity and love without all of the knowledge. And I have a lot of knowledge, you know, I've worked really hard actually to study and to learn, and that's important too, but it's a totally different experience when you're just working in flow and you're not thinking and your decisions aren't rational, but they're purely intuitive and responsive and surrendered, and almost just like if you can really trust the creative inspiration, you stop questioning why or if, you just move, and then you finish and you're like, how did I do that? And you didn't really do it. Someone else did it. You just said, okay, and moved. There are ways that my work has evolved that maybe is more obvious because it's what you're looking at and you can see different subjects or different brushwork. It's evolved in my use of materials. It's evolved in my handling of paint has changed. It's also evolved for me. It's how I experience the making of the work has evolved. I feel a lot more freedom. So that's the evolution. You know, there's a boldness and a freedom to move in new ways with a lot less questioning. So I think freedom and boldness is sort of and an experience that I'm having more frequently while I work. Practically speaking, I'm using metal leaf in more of a collage way. I like it to read more as a painting first, but the reality is that I'm using metal leaf and breaking it up to create the majority of the composition. So some of my newer pieces are maybe 99% leaf and with a little bit of paint on top to kind of pull out some of the shapes. So that has been a major evolution in the way I'm working, especially because, you know, I'm a painter. I consider myself a painter. I still call them paintings. They're still paintings. But there is a different process where there are marks that I've never seemed to be able to make with my brush that are coming out in these shapes that I'm breaking with my fingers. So it's a really kind of physical process too. I think I enjoy that part of it. And it's quite intuitive because you have very little control around how it breaks. And I also have a limitation in terms of the colors of the leaf that I have available. So it's these new constraints are creating huge jumps creatively for me because I'm having to solve the problem in different ways with different tools than I've had previously. I just saw a collector this morning who purchased a piece for me a number of years ago, and she came back to visit and say hi. And she said, you know, looking at my new body of work, I still think the piece you made for me is the most beautiful thing you've ever made. And I was like, thank you. You know, that's perfect. It's beautiful because to me, that meant that she had a really authentic connection with something. And authenticity is one of my core values. So I want to be authentic in everything that I create and that it's made from that place of authenticity and love. And so she connected to something there in that and loved it. And she still feels that powerful connection. One of the beautiful aspects of this space is the exchange between the collector and the artist. So being able to watch people experience your work is really, really, really valuable and fulfilling. To develop a relationship with your collector is really special. To meet
and see new people experience your work for the first time is really special. So there's a relational aspect to this show that gets really missed in most other gallery spaces. And I really treasure the ability to watch someone and interact with someone as they experience my work and see how it moves them.